welcome. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your part of your Sunday with us. My name is Lexi Johnson, and I'm the curator at the One Archives at USC Libraries. As a visual description, I'm a white woman wearing a black V-neck sweater and black glasses with my brown hair up in a bun. On behalf of myself and Jean Vaccaro at the One Archives, as well as Namatina Gregory and the Leslie Lohman Museum, it is my privilege to welcome you to the 6th event in our Remote Intimacies series. Just a quick note about the series. As some of you may know, we put together this series because we want to think about how we could sustain intimacy in these distance times, what opportunities there might be for communion across temporal and geographic distances, this one the most geographic distances yet. And we put together a series to challenge us to curate in this way and to think with artists about how they were working in this mediated space and time. The title, Remote Intimacies, comes from Karen Tongsen's theory on the powerful resonance of shared consumption and their capacity to bring people, things, and concepts together, even if space and time dictates their dispersal and isolation. And so we're excited to have this event, bridging many time zones and the Atlantic Ocean. I'll turn this over to Namatina, who will introduce tonight's artists and interlocutor.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to see you all here, as Lexi said, on a Sunday afternoon. I'm very glad you're all with us. I'm so excited to present Katarzyna Perlak's video, which comes on the heels of her 2-day performance. For the past 2 days, Katarzyna has met one-on-one with strangers in her hotel room to talk about their broken hearts. And the title of the piece, the performance piece, and of the film that she's sharing with us today is called Broken Hearts Hotel 2021. I will introduce Katarzyna and introduce our interlocutor today, Pawel Leszkowicz, and just a little bit about the video. We reached out to Katarzyna to commission a piece for our Remote Intimacies series, and she really hit upon a performance piece that is both remote and intimate, really thinking about the hotel as a space where one can reinvent themselves, where one can have intimacy with oneself, intimacy with strangers, and to think of the hotel as a kind of like stand-in for our remoteness is like a really interesting thought experiment now. So I will briefly introduce Katarzyna. She is a Polish-born artist based in London. Her practice employs video, performance, sound, and installation, and her work is really driven by politics and feelings. Some of the things she thinks about are queer subjectivity, migration, the potentiality of affect as a tool for registering historical moments, past historical moments, and continuous historical moments. One of the methodologies she's developing these days is of tender crafts, and she has a quite extensive textile practice. And some of the things she thinks about are, utopia, this concept of hope, and something she calls the, quote, wish landscape. She has a background in philosophy, and she also studied fine arts at Slade. Her films have been shown very widely at film festivals across Europe. She was part of Bloomberg New Contemporaries in 2017, and she shows internationally. And some of the many places that she's shown include the Diaspora Pavilion at the 57th Venice Biennale, the Liverpool Biennale, Art Night London, and Detroit Art Week. We're also joined, as I mentioned, by Pawel Leszkowicz, who is the professor in the Department of Art History at Mickiewicz University in Poznan, Poland. He is an academic. He's also a freelance curator who specializes in international contemporary art and LGBTQ studies. He has written several books. He has also organized the Ars Homo Erotica exhibition at Warsaw's National Museum. many and wonderful queer exhibitions and symposia in Poland and in the UK. He was a Senior Fulbright Research Fellow at one at USC and the EU EURIAS Fellow at Helsinki. And he's currently working on a public art festival in Lublin and Gdansk on the subjects of hospitality and ecology. So thank you so much, Pawel and Katarzyna, for joining us today. I realize I did not do my self-description. I am a white person approaching middle age. I have short brown hair and a somewhat androgynous expression. I have a short-sleeved denim shirt on, and I am sitting near a window with a bookcase behind me. Katarzyna will describe herself when she speaks, but she's in a much more fabulous surroundings than anyone else is. Okay, everyone, have patience with me for a moment while I share the video. It might take me a second. If I could put the music on to entertain everyone while I do this, I would, but I can't do too many things. Okay. Okay, so just to be clear, I am going to share the video in Zoom. If anyone has any issues watching, Jean has just shared the direct link in the chat. Oh no, you did not. You shared past.
That's for
in the chat.
Yeah, do you want to share the link as well? Oh, thanks, Lexi. Awesome.
Thank you, Lexi. So Lexi is sharing the direct Vimeo link in the chat. We are also going to be posting the transcript. We'll be sharing the transcript too, because this video is not yet subtitled. Okay. So I guess without further ado, I can start the conversation between Katarzyna and Pawel. And after that, we will open it up to the audience. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. And yeah, our moderator will get to them after the conversation. Thank you.
Shall I start then with my first remarks and questions? So thank you very much for introducing me. My name is Pawel Leszkowicz. I should start with describing myself. I am looking very European. I am blonde, balding. I wear a white shirt with blue floral pattern, and right now I am very, very touched by Katarzyna film. I have to admit that I've seen the first part of the film, this part where she's performing in the hotel, but I haven't seen the second part when she's dancing and walking on the beach with this wonderful rendering of Cher's song. And I'm extremely touched by the second part of this film. It's very emotional, it's very beautiful, it's very poetic, and it comes very close to my life, not because I have had so many heartbreaks in my life. I had only two actually, which is not so bad, but because I am very familiar with the south of England and Eastbourne and the beaches there, which are very melancholic, as melancholic as they are presented in Katarzyna's video. I spent many hours in my life walking those beaches in Eastbourne and in Brighton and looking at the pier and fantasizing about life, about love, and about art. So it comes very close to my internal feelings, very close to my psyche, and I love the music as well. And I think that the second part, especially the second part of the video, was extremely touching to me. When Katarzyna told me that she was working on the subject of heartbreak, and hotel and love and desire immediately came to my mind. Probably the most famous series about art photographic series about heartbreak, The Ballad of Sexual Dependency by Nan Goldin from the 80s, which is a total masterpiece when it comes to heartbreak, desire, love, longing, and loneliness. And I think that I can find some elements of the Ballad of Sexual Dependency in Katarzyna's work and in Katarzyna's film. On the other hand, when I was thinking about heartbreak and pop culture, the first song that came to my mind was not Cher, but Madonna song from Rebel album, Rebel Heart album, a song which is entitled Heartbreak City. And I am going to quote, I am in the middle of Heartbreak City, and it is not that pretty. So my experience with heartbreak is that heartbreak, when it is a real heartbreak, and when it's part of love and it is connected with love, it's really not pretty. It's very painful physically and emotionally. It's very traumatic. It's very ugly. And it's not something that I would like to go through again. So my first question to Katarzyna is that your version of heartbreak is quite aesthetic. It's very melancholic. It's very tender. It's very beautified, I would even say, with this pink surrounding and you wearing a wonderful, very erotic lingerie. So your vision of heartbreak is something that is very closely connected to the aesthetic experience of love. And have you ever thought about heartbreak that can be expressed as ugliness, as loneliness, darkness, and death, and getting close to death, not getting close to the light, like it is your experience at the very end when you are walking on the beach? My question would be, why this kind of atmosphere of heartbreak?
Well, I think like it's not, first maybe I should describe myself. I'm a white woman with my hair up, red, and I have a pink top that says Broken Dreams Club. And behind me, there is the room in which I was doing the one-to-one encounters, which has a bed that it's pink with flowers, big balloon hearts, and many other balloons, and a party curtain. So that's where I'm at. Okay, coming back to your question, I feel like not only in this work, but in my previous works as well, when I talk about subjects that are like quite like emotionally charged and quite heavy, I like to position them in environment that it's more fabulous and joy-bringing. So it's not all too heavy in a way, and that there is this dynamic happening between the two. And I think like what Martina mentioned about me thinking about utopias and wish landscapes, I'm quite interested in creating this like temporary utopian experiences in the works. So, and I think especially with the heartbreak, and like if you speak of the heartbreak and being the person who was rejected, I think this, you know, looking fabulous, it's like just trying, is the way of like dealing with it and like working with your self-esteem. And I think that like comes out in the heartbreak a lot. So I felt like I wanted to like uplift myself through this work. And definitely, I think it's already like quite vulnerable in some ways, talking about heartbreak, loneliness, the feelings of rejection. So I thought it works better perhaps if I work with the environment in the way I did, but then I work in the hotel, which is, I mean, the Queen's Hotel in Eastbourne, it has been closed since November and yeah, it's like one of this English hotel that has this like aspiration of being very royal, but it's also like quite like budget hotel, if I can describe it in this way, which I think it's interesting environment for me. And also being there with the like more queer aesthetics and with my voiceover with Eastern European accent, I was quite interested in the dynamics between those two. And yeah, I like this like nostalgic, sentimental element of this environment. I think it works for the heartbreak, and also this element of hotel being closed, the absence. Yeah, I feel so. I'm so lucky that I was able to to work there and to record this film. Yeah.
I understand that you want to make the experience fabulous and exciting, visually exciting for the viewer as an artist, but from your point of view, the experience of heartbreak, you are projecting it as something which is very sensual as well, as something which is very erotic. I am kind of curious about your dress, because you are wearing something which is between erotic lingerie and cowboy girl suit, something which is definitely going in the direction of something which is pinky, doll-like on the one hand, and I think that you are going in the direction between Heartbreak Hotel and Love Hotel.
Well, for me, like I myself, usually I don't, it's only a few works that I performed in, and I'm quite interested in exploring this like hyper femme presentations. And I feel like also like in my experiences performing, it's not something that is like natural for me. Maybe not like non-natural, but it's a challenge for me. I've had like several like body issues, body dysmorphia when I was growing up, and I feel that through these costumes, I'm like uplifting myself, because I always was trying like to hide in my presentations in the past. So I think it is like linked to my personal experiences and how I deal with being seen by this like hyper visibility, which yeah, it is also like quite erotic. But I was more interested in like romantic side of the hotel than the sexual in a way. And the previous work that I did, where I showed the lesbian wedding in Detroit, it was in the hotel which was themed as a honeymoon themed hotel. So that is something I explored before as well. Yeah, but it was more like the romantic side of that was the focus.
You write in the description of the performance that you have been inspired by lesbian love letters, and epistolary art plays definitely a role in the performance in this film. And I was thinking about about one line from the letter that you read. I am the one who waits. I am always the one who waits. So doing this performance and arranging this space for the performance, have you thought, what can we do to be the one who is waited for, not who's the one to wait? Because this is the worst position to be in. And this is the position which is very visible in non-Goldin photographs, in the ballad of sexual dependency, especially in the photographs when she's lying on the hotel room and the telephone is in proximity to her, and we see that she's waiting. And something like this can be detected from your performance as well, that you are waiting. I am the one who waits. How to be not the one who's waiting? Have you thought about it? Is this something that you can go through during this work? Because we know that this work is based on your personal experiences of going through the heartbreak. So do you think that after doing this work and after going through the heartbreak, you would never go through it again? You would never be the one who waits? How to change the position, the subjective position in our lives?
Well, I would hope so. Not ever go through the heartbreak again. Yeah, I really do. I don't think there is like necessarily anything wrong with the waiting as such.
But it's the most painful position.
Yeah, but if you know that someone is coming, then I guess it's less less painful. You wait with the excitement. Yeah, I feel like this one, it's a bit like hard to control. If I like speak just like from my, like, how do you deal with things like this in everyday life of like just figure out like your existence. I would just say to be present in the moment and to focus on what's in front of you rather than who you're waiting for. But yeah, it's interesting that you like put emphasis on. But yeah, I was interested in the waiting because of there has been so much waiting throughout this period of pandemic when people couldn't see each other. So I really wanted to include this this element in the work because I feel like many people were waiting and are still waiting more maybe than usually, although we always wait. It's not like a new pandemic experience.
Yeah, you mentioned that being in the state of heartbreak, being heartbroken is something that is more typical and more often comes to queer people than to other people. We had a conversation before this remote intimacies meeting, and this is something that really struck me in your way of thinking, that being queer is definitely exposes us more to the heartbreak. Do you still believe in it? Do you still think that that's true?
I mean, I wouldn't say that it like happens more. It was more of a question for me, and I had like conversation with people about this during the one-to-ones, and more of just this situation, especially when people live in like more remote communities where it's harder to meet other queer people. It feels like it can feel like it's already challenging. So if you meet someone and you fall in love and you have like, you are very excited that this encounter has happened despite of all the difficulties, then I feel like sometimes maybe it can feel like more difficult that it didn't work. Although at the same time, I'm sure that at the end for everyone, doesn't matter like in what type of relationship, always the heartbreaks I feel like raw and horrible. But I was just thinking of this element of having like these extra challenges of meeting people if you live in communities that don't have so many queer people in.
I understand. Yeah.
But it's a question I would be curious to hear from
other people. I am not so sure that I agree with you, especially coming to the English experience, the British experience. We know that in Britain, especially on Saturday and Friday night, you have hundreds of binge drinking women who cry desperately on the street. So heterosexual women. So from this point of view, a heartbreak, a very painful heartbreak, always seems to me as something that women, especially heterosexual women, experience more and more often. But maybe this is only my projection. The other question that I have is the question about tender craft, that you work with textile, you are inspired by textile, you are inspired by folk traditions, and this is something which is definitely visible in your performance, especially in the decor that you put in the hotel. So there is a connection between your interest in craft and the dress that you are wearing and the surrounding that you are presenting yourself in, right? It is all part of your creation.
I mean, in this work, because I made works that directly had conversation with Eastern European folk traditions, and that was working with costumes that are used in these traditions. And I work on a project that use embroidery. So I feel like in those works, I'm exploring how the crafts can be like revisited and like reimagined from like diasporic, queer, and feminist perspective, like contemporary ones. In this work, I feel like it's a bit different, and maybe the other projects are more direct, but I'm sure there can be different crossovers, and you can see maybe things that are inspired by this research as well.
I just really like the expression tender craft. To be honest, I have never heard this before. Is this something that you invented, or you are inspired by some writing on craft?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I invented, because I think the word tender has been like present in the conversations a lot in the last years.
Around textile?
No, just like in conversation
Okay.
and arts and in many different contexts. I felt like tender has been, it's the word that has been you know, like used and reflected on by many people. And then when I thought of the crafts and I was thinking of crafts as a social practice, I was interested in the word tender, because I was thinking how crafts can be used for like healing purposes or for like social justice purposes. So, and tender, I thought that it worked quite well for it.
Well,
So
tender craft sounds excellent indeed. Yeah, and maybe we should mention that we are both Eastern European, we are both Polish, we are both migrants. We left our beautiful but terrible country, beautiful and terrible at the same time, because Poland, even though it is in the European Union, so it's supposed to obey all the equality laws that are obligatory in the European Union, still Poland is a very conservative country, and right now our government is extremely homophobic. So probably this is the most homophobic country in the European Union, and especially in Europe, we have many queer migrants from Poland who are living in Great Britain, who are in France, in the Nordic countries, in the south of Europe, in Germany. So as queer Poles, we are migrants. We are, I would even say we are the queer nation of migrants. We are everywhere in Europe, but not in Poland. So difficult is the situation in Poland right now. And you work with Eastern European subject and queerness in the past as well, arranging, for example, a lesbian wedding in a folk tradition, in the Polish folk tradition. Is there any Eastern European elements in the Heartbreak Hotel?
No, just me.
Just you. But this is something that maybe you should...
I wouldn't say specifically. Quite a few elements of the costume. They are just like a veil and the underwear things, the white stuff. That's English. I was given this by Sophie, who co-directed the film with me, and Zahara O'Brien, Irish costume maker and performer. So no, those elements, no. And the other one is a lot of like net tights and this kind of more erotic, queer clothes. So I wouldn't say no, not in this work.
But maybe the Eastern European element is the interest in love. I was told a couple of times, because as a curator, I quite often worked on the subject of love, but I was told by a couple of American friends, curators or artists, or just American intellectuals, that no one is interested in love anymore, that love is not interesting. So maybe this is something which is very Eastern European. Actually, the first queer exhibition that I have ever curated, it was in 2003, before Poland joined European Union, and the title of the exhibition was Love and Democracy. Love and Democracy. So it is a pity that I didn't know you and didn't know this work at the time. It was too early, of course, because I would definitely include your work in the exhibition. And the exhibition was about the plurality of love stories in contemporary art, from the straight, bi, queer, gay, lesbian position. Just the plurality of love, something that was very much absent in Polish culture, interested me.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe because my work was about love, your work is about love. So maybe there is something Slavic in this
Yeah.
obsession with love.
No, it's true, and I've been told by my friends that like Polish can be like quite romantic or sentimental, and I think there is that, and also
Or
actually
horny.
there is there is this one song in the movie, in the film, that I've used by Zbigniew Preisner, which is used in Krzysztof Kieślowski movies. So I was thinking about this tradition of Polish cinema that is very emotional and sometimes a bit sad, or often.
Yeah, and of course, this is something which is not visible in the movie and is completely outside context, but it's maybe worth mentioning for our American viewers here that in many of this type of British hotels by the seaside hotels, there are Polish people who work there.
Yeah.
Poles are the workers in the hospitality industry in Great Britain. Yeah, quite often this is the case, Poles or Eastern Europeans.
Yeah, I mean, I was very lucky that because I contacted many hotels and I couldn't get access to any, and the hotel I got to, it was from a lovely project manager from the hotel who is from Bulgaria. So yeah, there was definitely this connection, and it really, I felt like it did help me to do it. And yeah.
And thinking about your work, I've mentioned Nan Golding and the Ballad of Sexual Dependency, but I was wondering if you have been inspired by any other artworks, contemporary art pieces, or maybe contemporary literature that is behind this work. You mentioned a couple of titles in your description, but maybe any artwork or film that inspired you?
I mean, there were several. I did a lot of reading when I was working towards that. At the end, it was only a few books, texts that I've used, and that was a couple of paragraphs from Bell Hooks, All About Love, and there was quite a lot from Roland Barthes' A Lover's Discourse, which has many things about hotel rooms. So that was quite interesting. A lot of things I haven't included because it was just way too long. And then this all amazing lesbian love letters. So I did do a lot of reading about love in a kind of critical way. I did read self-help books as well. I was reading also The Queer Art of Failure and thinking of the negative effects, and thinking of failure of the heart. And in terms of like visual references, I feel like this was the first work that I was trying to make in a more cinematic way than my other video works that were more like still shots. And I think it was more like a cinematic references, but I couldn't tell you any specific film as such, apart from the Krzysztof Kieślowski references.
The balloons behind you, they look like a little bit like Yayoi Kusama space.
This one, I think I was laughing that I could have an alternative business of creating romantic escapes rooms. I really enjoy creating this environment that transform spaces, and like the environments that supposed to encourage romantic encounters. But I think I think it's more of this kind of like a romantic decor rooms that could be like across different cultures. Yeah.
And how would you like to show this piece in a gallery space? Because now we've been watching it via Zoom on a flat screen. So do you think about projection, a video projection, one channel, how many channels projections? How do you see this work in a gallery space?
Yeah, I mean the work, it's so new. I like just made it in the last week almost. I filmed it in we had access to hotel from 11 till 5:30, and then we shot the scenes outside. And here I wanted to say thank you to Hisham Gardaf and Maya Angon that filmed. It was an amazing collaboration, and Sophie Ansel that co-directed. I could never do without them. And yeah, I think in terms of maybe it's a bit too, yeah, I haven't really thought about, I thought a little bit about, so either it could be projection on a bigger screen, but maybe there would be like a bed that people could sit on and watch the film. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I would like this to be a projection. Yeah.
And it is a very much a work in progress, right? Because you are performing. This is not only the film, but also one-on-one performance with people. So before I finish with my question, maybe as a last question, I would like to ask you about the performance, the experience of one-on-one meetings with people that you've done online.
Yeah, so I had yesterday and before yesterday, I had 7 different encounters in each day between 5 p.m. till midnight. And it was a wonderful experience. I didn't really know what to expect. I've never done anything like that apart from just chatting to people that I don't know, but I think it more happened either work situation or like online dating situation when the conversations are very different. I was very touched and moved by all the stories that people have shared with me. It was a wonderful experience, and I was just so touched that people, you know, had the trust in sharing all those stories with me. And I came with this idea because I thought there is a bigger possibility of intimate encounter in this one-to-one situation than in the group Zoom situation. And I think it worked. And I think there is this thing that if we share quite intimate histories, that does bring this like immediate sense of intimacy. And it was really interesting to hear people like breakup histories or broken heart histories from different experiences, and also how they have been navigating intimacy, both physical and romantic, through this time. So yeah, it was wonderful experience. Yeah.
What was the gender of the participant, the dominant gender? Was it men or women or non-binary people? Whom did you have?
Yeah, I think that there was more women and non-binary, and there were men as well. I wasn't asking, but I can just say how people were presenting or how I could read them. Yeah.
So more women.
It's just slightly more.
Okay.
Yeah, there was selection, the selection variety. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that I think this thing that you mentioned with like women being more heartbroken. I think the Bell Hooks book All About Love, she speaks really well about how there the assumption that the women are the ones that are mostly reading the self-help books. At the same time, women are always treated, as she says, as suspects when they talk about love, that they talk from the position of lacking love, when men are more assumed that they talk from perspective or receiving and some sort of expertise. So yeah, this is really a wonderful book that speaks about this like gender dynamics in terms of like love. Yeah.
But finishing with your personal experience of heartbreak, it was a lesbian love story, right? That finished, unfortunately, that finished recently. And do you think that this work is like your therapeutic experience of the heartbreak, and does it help?
Yeah, it is. I think like I generally use my work to process my feelings. Not always very personally, but I often like think of my personal experience, and they try to expand to things that other people can identify with. But yeah, it was like my art closure of some sort. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I think that we can open the floor for other participants. Thank you very much, Katarzyna, for our conversation.
Paweł.
So if you have any questions to Katarzyna, please, this is the time to go. If not, I can always continue.
There were a couple of questions in the chat that maybe partially answered in this conversation, but I also welcome those who ask them to unmute. And if you make a question or a comment, there's a first question from Nicolas Durand. Nicolas, do you want to? If you feel like your question has been answered, maybe not, or you're welcome to rephrase. There's also a question from Perry Levitch. A question, how do you conceptualize the one-on-ones as part of the Broken Hearts Project? As an intimate dimension that exists just between you and the people you met with? As a sort of immersion in a larger community experience?
Oh yes, it's something I really enjoyed when it comes to the community experience. I really enjoyed it because everyone that called me shared their experiences that were like queer love experiences, and they identified queer. So yeah, that was really a beautiful experience of having this a community, 2 days of being in community. And I also got calls from Polish diaspora cross Atlantic. So that was also very moving, and I really enjoyed that and really like creating those connections. But yeah, the reasons I wanted to do it, it was very much responding to the theme of remote intimacies and thinking how this intimacy can be explored. And I just thought that the one-to-one experiences, they give us more opportunity to do this, and also reflecting on just how the queer community connects. And I think there is a lot of online presence in a way queer community connects. So I thought that it was interesting to explore that. Yeah.
You did mention in one of our conversations that queer people do meet online more than straight people, and
I did read some statistic in one like a book about love, more like a self-help book. There were different statistics quoted, and it was said that even though now online connection, especially during the pandemic, are very present across all the relationships and sexualities, but it did say that historically, in terms of like online apps, there was higher number of queer LGBTQ people connecting on online apps than otherwise. Yeah.
So a follow-up question from Nicolas Durand. Nicolas, I can ask this, or you are free to ask it yourself. Okay, I'll just ask it. I may have missed this answer, but I'm wondering why stage... Nicolas is in a busy room right now, so I'll just keep asking. Why stage these intimate encounters in a hotel room? It's really interesting since so many hotels are closed. In the US at least, hotels, queer hotels especially, tend to be more privileged spaces. Many of them cater to gay white men.
Well, I wanted to do it. I mean, I'm actually not in the hotel room right now. I'm in my friend's living room that I've arranged as a hotel room because a lot of hotels are closed and also they're very expensive. So that was the option I have chosen. I created this environment, but this is just a living room. So I'm not actually in the hotel, but I wanted to create, I didn't want to do it in my own place because I felt that it was important for me that I was outside of my like everyday space. And I think hotels, they do offer this, that you can go into the spaces that are not yours, but you can make them yours for the time you are there, but you don't have all your like usual stuff. You don't, if you have a like, you know, a flatmate or anyone that lives with you or a pet, they're not going to come. And it's just like this place that it's just like an empty sleeve or however you call it. And you can just, if you want to bring an impact, you can just make it into what you want it to be. Yeah. So I just want to be elsewhere, and I wanted the participant to feel like they just not meeting me in my bedroom, but in this place that no one lives in. Yeah.
A question from Francesco. What does queer utopia mean to you in these times of uncertainty, where galleries and queer spaces are closed?
Well, there isn't like I don't have like an answer what is a queer utopia. I'm definitely I've been inspired by Munoz writing and Cruising Utopia, and about like temporary utopias and how they can be created. It's not really dependent so much on the spaces, but more on encounters and ways of relating. And I have been doing some, in terms of this like wish landscape that I've mentioned before, I've been doing research, and I wrote my like finite paper when I studied at Slade about visions of utopia, and I was looking how concepts of utopia, they change from those focus on geographical location and society orders to those based on feelings and temporary experiences. So I am quite interested in those, and I guess how they can happen can be quite flexible. In my work, in the previous work, Happily Ever After, that I did with Kasia Sobucka in Detroit, it was follow-up of a fictional lesbian wedding that I created in Poland, that it's not allowed, it's not legal. So I have created the whole party. The brides, they didn't actually get married, but it was a whole wedding party with all the parts that usually wedding have, especially like a traditional Polish wedding, but they were all queered. And when I talked to some people that were there and were queer, they felt like for a moment they were on an actual lesbian wedding. And even though I know this doesn't solve anything, but it was the beautiful moment to make, and also like move people's imagination to what it will be. So it's about this. And also when I made this film where I created fictional archive of lesbian love in Polish folklore, it was like the same in terms of, by thinking of past differently, making a new vision for the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it answers the question, but just some thoughts.
I don't know if it answered Francesco's question, but it, you know, makes me think about the, you know, this question of kind of not just reimagining futures, in your case as a person from the queer Polish diaspora, but also reimagining pasts, right? Thinking about what it would mean if all of these kind of traditional folk songs could have included queer people, or always included queer people, but could have included them in a way that was public and that was celebrated and that was kind of became a part of folklore and history. And I think that is it's incredibly beautiful to watch, even though I'm clearly not a member of the Polish diaspora, but also someone with roots in a very conservative Southern European country. And I'm wondering if, are there opportunities for you to show this work in Poland, in online spaces or in-person spaces? Has that changed over time? And
I mean, you mean any work or any specific work?
Or specific works that are specifically queer, right?
Okay, so it's going to be the first time after 5 years of making that I'm going to show the work Nie łamie się kochaneczkę, which is the folk video with local 30 gallery in Warsaw. That will be soon, so I'm very excited about that because I have been trying really hard to show this work in Poland and it hasn't been easy. I have to say that the wedding that started in Poland, that was supported by PWA Wrocław, and so they really supported me in creating the performance that I then filmed, and then it became an installation. But yeah, it's been rather challenging to show my work in Poland, but I'm very excited to have this first exhibition coming up, and I hope that there will be more opportunities because it's really important for me to be part of a conversation. And yeah, I recently made a performance for a space in London actually that was online, and that made it to Polish internet with varied responses. that happened. Yeah.
I just shared an article from the Calvert Journal, the beautiful article about Nie łamie się kochaneczkę, which would be nice for.
Thank you. Yeah, I really like that conversation that we've had and what they wrote. Yeah. And I also just add, because we have spoke about queerness and Eastern Europe, I just wanted to mention that one of the reasons that it's really important for me to make this work that are historically based is because, yes, some people in Eastern Europe, they don't really see queerness as something that belongs to Eastern Europe. It's more considered as something that came from Western Europe. So I'm really trying in my work to make work that presents somehow that it's not something that just came recently to Poland, but always been there.
Does anyone have any other questions before we say goodbye to this beautiful conversation and work? Katarzyna, thank you so much.
And thank you.
Sharing this work with us.
And thank you for everyone to joining us on Sunday. I know it's, a day a lot of people do other things than joining Zoom, especially there's a lot of Zoom fatigue happening after this year. So I really appreciate you being here.
And Pawel, thank you for this, for your.
I'm always happy to be part of One Archive. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
And we're really looking forward to 2 more upcoming programs in this series between Leslie Lohman and One. And please follow our social media and follow the links. And you can also share Katarzyna's film and the work. Thanks to everyone at LLM and One for helping to make this happen, and for all of you for joining us today. We'll see you next time.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.